Welcome to the Darkstream. Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com, and of course, Infogalactic. Today I want to talk about something that far too few people are talking about, especially in the media. And that is what's happening to Tommy Robinson right now. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this, and a lot of people have emailed me. A lot of people have made sure to bring it to my attention. And a lot of people are deeply concerned about this. But the reality is that still far too few people are aware of what's going on. They're not understanding why it's happening. And they're not understanding the continent-wide significance of what's going on right now, not just in the UK, but across the European Union in general. Now, before I go any further, I think that it's important to point out that a number of people are doing a really good job of coming out and speaking out about this. One of them, of course, is Geert Wilders, the Dutch politician.
Behind me is the British Embassy in The Hague. And I'm here because I'm shocked and outraged. What happened in the United Kingdom last week is an absolute disgrace. Tommy Robinson,
someone like Wilders
a freedom fighter and Islam critic, was jailed, while the judge issued a gag order to silence the media.
Political power in
freedom
the EU.
of speech is being
And he's
violated
also someone
all over
who
Europe
has
and
a
also in Britain.
reasonably sized following.
The lights of freedom
And so
are going out.
It's good to see that people like him are coming forward and speaking out. And he's not the only one. Oh, it's still playing. Let's see if we can turn it off.
Behind me.
There we go. Sorry about that. I'm just learning how these clips work. But Wilders is not the only person who's been speaking out. Stefan Molyneux has really taken the lead on this as well.
They used to come in the middle of the night. They used to loudly or quietly, loudly if they wanted to frighten your neighbors, quietly if they wanted everyone to become even more paranoid, and they would take you from your bed and they would drag you out into the cold. They'd throw you into the back of a van. They'd drive you to some detention facility. You may or may not get some kind of show trial, or some judge's sentence would be handed down, and then you would be whisked off to some gulag or concentration camp where you may survive, you may not survive. Maybe you would have enough to eat, maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you'd have enough clothing for Siberian winters, maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you would have some medical need that wouldn't be taken care of. Maybe you'd survive, maybe you wouldn't. That's how they used to do it behind the Iron Curtain in Nazi Germany, in Mao's China, wherever the steely pseudo-legal tentacles of the fascists and police states close around the formerly open-to-speak throats of the general population. Tommy Robinson was arrested today. Why? There was suspicion of what is called breaching the peace. Now, I'm no lawyer, but from what I've read, breaching the peace is you're engaged in an activity which is either...
But Stefan and Geert will try this again. Apparently, I am falling afoul of the British court's gag order or something. No, I think I'm pretty sure that this was simply the result of my not handling the video stuff properly. So anyhow, what I think is important to observe here, though, is who is speaking out about this and who isn't. Okay, where are the big self-appointed champions of free speech in this? Have we heard Ben Shapiro say anything yet? Have we heard Jordan Peterson use his big microphone in order to champion the cause of Tommy Robinson, or at the very least to protest what is happening with regards to the British media's gag order? Now, contra what you guys might think, I'm not obsessed with these guys. I have no idea what they've said on the subject, but I know enough about them to guess that they're not going to say anything. Because when push comes to shove, they are more concerned about eliminating and eradicating nationalism than they are in championing the free speech that they claim to support. Now, the problem is actually much, much bigger than what Tommy Robinson is facing or than the British media is facing. A lot of you may not realize, but in Italy, two nationalist parties recently dominated the most recent Italian elections. Movimento Cinque Stelle, which is of the left, and La Liga, which is led by Matteo Salvini, is of the right. And between the two of them, they have an absolute majority in the Italian parliament. In fact, La Liga has a very powerful position. They're one of the more powerful parliamentary parties in Europe at the moment. But what was remarkable was that the Italian president managed to interfere with the formation of a government. And the sole reason that he stood in the way and prevented the formation of a government was because he wanted to keep a 81-year-old Eurosceptic out of the finance ministry. So what that tells us is that all of the professed ideals of all the professed ideals of the European Union, all the various claims to democracy and so forth, are entirely false. It all comes down to power and money. The European Union is doing whatever it can to silence people like Tommy Robinson. They're doing as much as they can to keep the public from finding out what's really going on. But most of all, they are absolutely desperate to protect the single currency. Because the single currency is what makes all of the banking games and all of the shenanigans and everything possible. And so it's important to understand that these games that they're playing are just that. They're games. They have no moral authority. They have no moral high ground. And they have absolutely not a single democratic leg to stand on. It's, as is so common with intellectual charlatans throughout the world and throughout history. What they play the game of bait and switch. They play the game of changing the very clear and well understood definition of terms. So now what we see is that democracy no longer means the will of the people. It now means the approved will of the neoliberal world order. And so that's why you see all these claims that the U.S. has to defend democracy. But if the U.S. is going to defend democracy, it should be invading Europe again. Democracy is far more in danger in Britain and in Italy and in France and in Germany than it is in many countries in Asia and the Middle East. You know, what's happening is people are actually voting for specific parties. They're voting for things like Brexit, and then they're seeing the neoliberal world order do absolutely everything it can to attempt to overturn that. Of course, when the vote goes the way they want it to, like the abortion vote in Ireland, you'll never hear about it again. You're not ever going to see all of these bizarre interpretations and legalities and obstacles and roadblocks that are being thrown up in the way of the Brexit vote. You're not going to see any of that when you see the results of the abortion referendum. And so the thing that's really remarkable is that this is nothing new. Several countries voted against the precursor to the European Constitution, and they were promptly forced to vote again. The name of the game of this pseudo-democracy is to vote until you vote the way that the neoliberal world order wants you to vote, and then you never vote again. And so, when you hear people claiming that we have to defend democracy, or when you hear them claiming that nationalists endanger democracy and all that sort of thing, it's a lie, because these people no more value democracy than anything else that might stand in their way. And so it's very important, I think, to let people know what the truth is. That's why I was featuring what Geert Wilders was saying. That's why I was bringing your attention to what Stefan Molyneux is saying, is because those are the people that you should be listening to. Those are the people whose opinions actually matter. Those are the people who have the courage to stand up and speak out against what is wrong, what is false, and what is unjust. So, nationalism is rising. The right is inevitable. And, the trends are in place, but there are tremendous powers that are attempting to keep back the waves. And unfortunately, in their desperation, they are doing things that are going to cause tremendous problems, like allowing 1 million Muslims into Europe, and like trying to hide the truth of what happened in Rotherham and what is happening in other English towns, where literally hundreds of British girls are being raped, kidnapped, and sexually abused. These are very dark times. And so the more that we can shed light on what is happening and on those responsible for these things, the less likely it is that they're going to be successful in turning back the tide of history. I don't believe that they're going to be successful in this. I don't believe it actually matters what we do. I don't believe it matters what they do. I think that the pendulum, the return of the pendulum, is inevitable. Homogeneous societies have always risen out of heterogeneous societies. And so, it's like gravity, it's like the tide. And so, unfortunately, man always has the tendency to think that he can control these things. He can't. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to try, and that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a tremendous amount of hardship on the part of many people. And so, I don't know what we can do for someone like Tommy Robinson, but what I do know is that if the British government wants us to shut up and be quiet about it, then it's probably a good idea for us to speak out. Have a good evening. We'll see you the next time.